What's up, Move Nation? This is Jonathan coming to you from Move Remote HQ. And I just finished my conversation with Trista Highfill. If you're not familiar with who she is many things, including a mom and a wife, and a coach at our gym, and an athlete. We just had a great conversation regarding how she started at CrossFit, which was just 8 weeks after giving birth to her fourth child, what her training and her mindset were leading up to discovering that she had cancer and what the treatment was like after that. Then we discussed a little bit about what it's like to be a coach, and she gives us her thoughts on coaching women and helping them find their true strength. So this was just a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy it. So take a listen. I'm going to take you back to an early 2012. Okay, early 2012. And your dear husband has been coming home from his newfound gym, sweaty, spouting weird things like wads and snatches and paleo. And for some reason, he's like chalking his fork at dinner.
Chalking everything.
And I'm wondering what is going through your head at this moment when Shuck is just finding out about CrossFit and CFed and Move.
You know, Shuck was immediately smitten. Just absolutely loved it from day one. And I was so thankful. So I had been running by that point for several years and had been trying to get him to go run with me, to do anything with me. I had started taking classes at the YMCA and working out in various ways. And he was very unhappy. He had spent a lot of time on the road, a lot of time traveling. He sits down in front of a computer all the time. And he was somebody who had been in sports, you know, all through high school and in college playing sports. And then, after that, he gets into a desk job and he just feels sluggish and fat and tired and all of that and weak and didn't like running. I mean, he would go to this is how desperate I was. I would talk him into going to the YMCA with me, and he'd be in a class, taking like a quote unquote ladies class. You know, there's just women in the room. It was Susan's class. Susan
Right.
was fantastic. And he would go do those classes with me just because I wanted him to work out so bad. So when he found it, I was so incredibly happy for him that he had found something that he liked so much.
What motivated you to sign up?
Oh, he did. 100%. He kept telling me, you are going to love this. And I think really I think he was coming at it, now that I look back on it, from a very selfish place. It didn't sound selfish at the time. It sounded like he really thought that I would love it. But really, he wanted to talk about it so much all the time. He needed me to be a part of it because he wanted to talk to me about it. He wanted me to understand it. And even now, when I've had to take breaks from the gym for a prolonged period of time, he gets very frustrated that I'm not available to talk to him about the workout that we did that day. And so, but he came about it saying, you would really, really love this. I know you would. Come on, you've got to try it. And I was happy with what I was doing before. So it was a hard sell for me, but he was just so excited and was talking about the people so much, which was something a little bit different. I've been going to the YMCA for years, but I didn't know the people in my classes. I knew the instructor, but I didn't know anybody else. And I'd see their faces every single week. We just didn't talk that way. That wasn't something that we did. And so this was something different, where he would come back talking about all the people that he had met, the conversations they had, and and all of that. And that was interesting to me. So he talked me into joining up. I had just had Ella. I think Ella was 8 weeks old when I went to my first CrossFit class. Yeah. Yeah. By that time, I'd already been running for a couple of weeks. Back on, it made him buy me this massive, wonderful jogging stroller. Cause it's like, if I'm going to get back in shape, I'm going to really get back in shape. I had issues with my iron levels the entire time I was pregnant with Ella, so I couldn't work out at all while I was pregnant. And so I was really ready to get back and moving. So he hit me, I think, at the right time to get started again.
What was your fundamentals like, or what was your onboarding process like when you joined, if you remember.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I remember at that time we had group fundamentals. So there were anywhere from 5 to I think 9 people in a fundamentals class at a time. So it was several days a week for a couple of weeks where you'd come in and you'd go through different movements and then you'd have a short workout at the end of it. And I don't, it's funny. I don't remember a lot of the people in my fundamentals group except for 2 younger kids that were in college, and they were just so eager and excited and had so much energy. And here I am, I'm this new mom, the 4th kid by this time, and I was just exhausted. I mean, just it was just killing me. And I was just, so they kind of stuck in my mind because you can't help but compare yourself to the people that you see. And I'm like, oh, well, they're brand new to this too. But we were coming from entirely different worlds. And so it was tough to get out of that space mentally, I think, a little bit. But it was really great to have these people that were going through the same things that you were at the same time.
Were you scared, or were you energetic about it, or enthusiastic, or
I wasn't scared at all because I had been working out for a long time, and I felt pretty confident in what my abilities were. But I will say that I did not fall in love. I did not fall in love. I was not smitten like he was. It took me a long time to, luckily I had him at home to encourage me. And I think that's where I really got this benefit of having somebody that, was aware of what I was capable of. But it can be, especially I think for women, it can be very disheartening to feel, put yourself in a vulnerable position like that. And I think you do a little bit when you're at CrossFit, especially if you're a person like me who's used to just going out there and giving it my all. And when my all seems puny compared to at the time what it seemed like everybody around me, everybody was faster, everybody was stronger, everybody was doing these movements I couldn't even dream about doing. And it was definitely disheartening at a certain extent to have to go through that. And so you kind of have to get over your own ego, and it just takes some time. It definitely took me longer than it took him. He was ready to jump in, but I'd never been a participant in group sports in any way. So being around these other people who were watching me do things, or at least that's how I felt. I felt like I was being watched, and everybody knew because we use a whiteboard. Everybody knew what I did on the workout that day. And at the time, I saw it as a tool for comparison between me and other people instead of the way that I look at it, I think now, which is a tool for myself to get better. So all of that is kind of a process for some people. And I see it now as a coach. I see that with people having to go through that own process with themselves, and that you do have to get over this sense of what I could be doing or what I should be doing. That was tough for me.
I think we have similar ideas about when we started,
Yeah.
because it took me a while to get into it. I was coming from a different background, but I mean, I always considered myself naturally athletic, and I would do these CrossFit workouts, and I would go out too hard, and then I'd end up dying on the floor in like 1 minute, and I would give up on a workout for 5 minutes, and then I'd get back at it and do it again, and just this was my process.
Yes.
It was honestly like a year and a half into it of knowing what CrossFit was and doing CrossFit before I was ready to be committed to it.
Oh yeah.
So
Definitely. I remember coming home and crying and sobbing, being very upset and being very frustrated, and talking to Chuck and being like, why do people do this to themselves? Why is this a thing? And part of that was just pushing myself further than I was really ready to push myself. And the other, like I said, it really was for me just ego. I mean, I hate to say it, and it's not like I thought that I was that spectacular, but you just don't realize how much that perfectionist in you keeps you from challenging yourself in a way where you're going to be humbled. I'm going to be humbled every single time I go to the gym by somebody, and you have to be, and back then it was by everybody at the gym, it felt like. And so you have to be able to put yourself in that vulnerable position. And that was a really hard sell for me. I mean, I'm glad that I stuck through it. So glad. But that's a hard position to be in that position of humility. But being in that position of humility, I think that's what lends itself to growth, or at least it did for me. Huge growth. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always like every day you come into the gym, you're just looking at a mirror, and it's like, this is exactly who you are in this moment, every workout you get, and you can't fake it. It's right there in front of you.
Right,
So,
right. Of course, when I did start too, I will say that I was extremely hormonal, breastfeeding. Um, Not getting a lot of sleep. I remember breastfeeding in the middle of the night and looking at my phone because I still didn't know all the workouts, and you'd post the workouts like at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I would see them at that time, and I'd be on my phone breastfeeding, looking at, oh my gosh, I wonder what toast a bar is, and looking at videos online of what the different movements were, trying to. So I was definitely into it and engaged. It was just there was so much else going on that it was a tough transition.
so when you started, you were post baby,
Right.
so you had to go through the challenges of being a mom of four
Yeah.
and still getting to the gym and working on yourself. How did you navigate that? How did you find time to actually get your workouts in and take care of a newborn and the other three kids?
Right. I get that question a lot of how do you find time? And, it always cracks me up a little bit because it's not like there's some magic box where you just, oh, there it is. It was just waiting for me to get it. I, I have always and always will kind of transition my life around the opportunity to be able to work out. Even when we bought our first house, when I was pregnant with my first kid, we bought a house that I could walk out of the front door and go running. I was like, I need a sidewalk in front of my house so I can go running. It's got to be next to a YMCA. So those were part of the discussions that we had when we decided what neighborhood we wanted to live in. Was that I had to go out, be able to go out of the front door and run. At the time, I wanted to be able to go to the YMCA because they had free childcare. All of that stuff kind of went in together, and this was no different. It was, how do we organize our day around making this happen? And I had to get a babysitter for when if Mike and I weren't wanted to go to the gym together, or I'd have to go when he could watch the baby and the other kids, or we bring them with us, and the baby'd be in a stroller. And a lot of people do that now, and I see that now, and it brings me back. And I've got pictures of Ella as a toddler playing in tires, and I
Right.
have pictures of the rest of my kids at doing kids CrossFit when they were itty bitty, and it's kind of saying the one thing that I liked about it is that the entire family was kind of a part of it, and so we scrambled, and there were days that I missed because I couldn't make it all work, and it was just that was just a priority that I had, was getting in shape and being in shape. And if it's a priority, then you just find a way to do it. I wish that there was some magical plan, but each person's life and experiences are so different, what they can and cannot do. I've tried that before to make suggestions for people. Well, have you thought about this? And there's always a reason why that specific thing can't happen. So I think each person just has to say, okay, on the list of priorities that I have, where does this fall? And if it's high up, then you kind of just make it happen. But juggling for me meant that everybody knew that that was a part of our lives, and it still is today. So juggling, it's not, oh, I'll do this if I've got time. It's,
Right.
oh, I've got on my list of things to do today, this is one of them. So how do I make it happen?
Yeah, it's not like you've figured out how to make it work. It's just you make it work on a day-to-day
Yes,
basis.
you force it, and some days it feels like you're forcing it, and those days are tough. But that's how I've kind of set up my life in terms of priorities, that's one of them. So that's what we do. And some days it works out and it's fantastic and it's smooth, and you can go like that for weeks, and then you hit a roadblock, and okay, these next couple of weeks are going to be tough, or a kid gets sick, or there's field trips that you want to go on to, or there's all of these things to do. So sometimes it might be in the driveway with some dumbbells for that day, and it's not getting into the gym, but it's something to keep you going until you can get back in there and make it happen.
So you've been doing this for 8 years
Yeah,
ish.
crazy.
Obviously, you've had to have seen some changes. I mean, you're sticking with it. what is something that motivates you now to keep with it?
Um, so when I think about what motivates me now, there's a couple of things. So vanity's still there. I still like to look a certain way. So I won't pretend that I don't, because I do. And when everything's cyclical. I feel like, at least in my life, where you go through periods where you're working out hard and you're really getting in shape and you're getting fit and all of this. And then, you know, you hit like the week of Christmas and you're like, I just want to be a sloth and eat everything in sight and not work out. But over the course of a year, and you've got 8 years of it, over the course of a year, it's more of the working out, eating right, staying healthy, all of that good stuff. That's kind of where I tend to land kind of overall on the trajectory. And I think that, I said all that and now I forgot where I'm going with this.
Your motivation day to day now, or
so that's part of it. But the thing that motivates me really on a day-to-day basis, I like to go in and I see my friends. My people are at the gym. The people that I care about, who I feel like care about me. I got in a car wreck not that long ago. Somebody hit me when I was picking up my kids from school, a block from my house. And this, first person I call is my husband. The second person I call is somebody from the gym. I'm like, okay, that sort of thing. If I need tools, I'm calling people from all of those things. I don't have family close by. We don't have a community that we're connected to other than the gym. And it's been fantastic because those are my people that I have in common, or things in common with. So community is definitely a big one. And then health, which I'm sure we'll get into some health issues here during our discussion, but health is a big, huge thing for me. Staying healthy is not something that I say in kind of that offhanded, I really like to be healthy, but no, I have to be healthy. That's huge for me. And I find that if I focus on the health bit, the vanity piece of it just kind of falls into it, is what I've learned over the course of 8 years. If I focus on my health, I will end up looking the way that I want to look, which is and if I focus on my health, it just so happens that I'm building my community at the same time. So if that's the only thing I focus on, it gets me all of these other things that I want as well.
Yeah, I think that's interesting that if you live in the way that you want to live, you become the person that you want to be.
Crazy how that works.
Yeah. So you mentioned health is a big driver for you, and you've had, maybe it's more than a health scare. So you are a cancer survivor.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about that and maybe the process and maybe about when that happened?
Yeah. So in 2013, I was diagnosed with stage 4 tonsil cancer. And so that was, a little bit, what was it? Maybe a year and a half after I had started working out at CrossFit. And so my youngest was 18 months old when I started having symptoms that were serious enough for me to explore what was going on. One good thing about being someone who is constantly working out is that you recognize your body. You understand when something's wrong, probably much more often than somebody else. Wow, something just doesn't feel right. In this case, it was, first I started getting hives, which were weird. It was like, oh my gosh, I'm suddenly allergic to something. And then after that, it was a sore throat and lymph nodes that were swollen that wouldn't go away. And my doctor actually ended up being somebody from the gym. My primary care physician was a friend of mine from the gym, and I told her about the symptoms, and I started with just thinking, I've got strep throat. Went and got a Z-Pack from the doctor, didn't do anything. So my doctor from the gym set me up with an MRI, and from there it was just kind of this cascade effect that was super fast in getting me with the doctor. And again, it was 38 years old. It was already stage 4 by the time we found it, and it had probably gone from stage 1 to stage 4 just in a matter of months. So it wasn't something that I had lived with for a long time and ignored the symptoms. It was just, it went that quickly. So the prognosis was great. There's a 95% 5-year survival rate for the type of tonsil cancer that I had, which was fantastic. But the unfortunate side of it is that the treatment for it is particularly brutal. It's very fast. which sounds awesome. Oh, wow, you get this over really, really quickly. But the way that they do it is particularly intense. So for 7 weeks, it's daily radiation treatments and then 3 full-day chemotherapy treatments. And it was definitely the toughest physical, emotional, mental thing I've ever gone through. And dealing with the side effects now is pretty intense also, but it's nothing compared to just going through that process of um, the the intensity of the treatment. And unfortunately for me, they put you on these stages of pain medication. So you get this pain medication, and eventually they put it on a nifty little patch on your back, some nice, pleasant opioids that they keep you from being in complete and utter pain. And they put you on 4 even installments. So you go from, you're at 0 to 50% to 75% and 100%. And I got up to 50%, tried the 75% when I was supposed to, and it made me violently ill. So I was stuck at the 50% point in terms of pain medication throughout the remainder of radiation and chemo, which it builds upon itself. So it's worse. Uh, you know, Session 25 is exponentially worse than session 2. So
Wow.
The thing I will say, and that I talk to people about how cancer and CrossFit to me are connected in my mind, is that ability to push myself through discomfort. I wouldn't, I'm never in pain when I'm working out, but I am uncomfortable a lot in my workouts. And being able to push through that, I think gave me a mental edge that I might not have had to kind of make it through that point, which is, you're still dealing with trauma after the fact, but I think it would have been a lot worse. I probably would have had to have been hospitalized had I not been able to mentally just get through the pain of the ordeal, I guess, is kind of my connection to it.
Do you feel like the exercise you'd been doing had any help in your recovery, or aside from the mental aspect, do you think like the physical aspect of it helped you at all?
Oh my God. Yes, yes, yes. And they told me all through the entire thing that I was going, there was a good side and there was a bad side. So the good side was recovery, absolutely 100%. And I was just stronger physically. So being strong. And in fact, at that point in my life, when I was diagnosed with cancer, I was the healthiest, other than cancer, that I'd ever been in my entire life. I ate well, I exercised, all of that. I was on point when I got sick with cancer, which is kind of the comedic aspect of it. But the doctors told me that I would be stronger. I would recover faster because I was young, because I was healthy. All of those things were great. But the treatment was also going to treat me much worse, which is kind of interesting to me. So my father, for example, had the exact same chemotherapy drug that I had and didn't make him sick at all. And for me, and that's what doctors kept saying, yeah, people who are really healthy, for some reason, poisoning their bodies
They react
a
to it.
much bigger impact than if I had been, a 75-year-old person that had smoked for years and years and years, wouldn't be impacted necessarily the same way, which I thought was ironic and horrible, but that's the truth of it. But as far as recovery goes, my recovery was uh, astounding. And that's another thing that the doctors were saying all through it. Okay, I'm running already a few weeks after my final chemo treatment. To put it into perspective, when I ended chemo and radiation, I could barely stand. I I would have to lean on Chuck when I go to the doctor's office. I couldn't sit upright in the appointment room. I was that weak. I've lost, of course, a ton of weight. I couldn't eat, couldn't drink. My throat's swollen, my tongue's swollen. Since that's where the radiation is going, it's all going in my throat. So just the process of eating was just a mind blowing task, and you don't want to eat anyway. So you're incredibly, incredibly weak. But I bounced back from that um, incredibly quickly, and I know that that has to do a lot with already being in shape. And I had two things that happened during treatment that I think help. One thing is that they recommend for people to get a feeding tube when they go through the process. So before you do it, because you're getting radiation in your throat, it's going to burn. You're not going to be able to eat or swallow. However, if you don't eat or swallow during treatment, you could actually lose the ability. Those muscles will stop functioning, and you either have to go through physical therapy to get the function back, or you just lose the ability completely. And my radiation oncologist, who is a young mother, also, she's like, if I were you, I wouldn't let them do the stomach tube. She's like, it's up to you, but if you're strong enough to be able to force yourself to eat and drink and keep those muscles going, she's like, that's a better plan. And she let me know that the recovery would be more in my hands. I'm not waiting for somebody to do the surgical procedure to remove the stomach tube. It's, once I'm done with chemo and radiation, I can be on my own. And that independence was incredibly important to me. So I did not get a stomach tube. And that was the right decision for me. And I'm really, really glad I did that. And then the other thing is I had one radiation oncologist when I was weak, barely moving, not eating, come up to me, and she sat down and talked to me for a while. And she's like, you need to do one thing. You need to go out every single day and go for a walk. And I remember being it was a visceral response where I was just hating her. I was like, how dare you? Are you trying to kill me? You're trying to kill me. I can barely, stand in this room, and you're telling me to go for a walk every day. And that advice, as much as I hated it, I tried to follow it as much as I could, because otherwise I was laying in my bedroom, not able to be around my family, just laying down. And the first time that I went out for a walk, my dad was staying with me, and he wouldn't leave me to go on the walk on my own. He was terrified that I was going to fall or something like that. So he's with me, and I probably, gosh, I made it 10 steps before I puked on the sidewalk, and then had to turn around and go back. But then I went and did it the next day, and kept doing it. And I think just those little walks where I couldn't go far, and it just made me ill as all get out, I think it did make a difference. And nothing else for changing the scenery, but certainly just keeping that mindset that I'm capable of walking. And I think that made a big difference.
So that's obviously what you were referring to with, how your idea of health is maybe different than someone else's.
Yeah, I think that's true.
How has that affected how you kind of moved forward after that?
So the thing that I've always told my kids, so cancer runs in our family. It is rampant on my dad's side of the family. And so I've kind of always approached it with the idea that even before I got cancer, when they told me I had cancer, there was no shock, no anger, none of those emotions were there, because I'm like, okay, it's time. I thought I'd get a few more years in it, but I knew in my mind, for me, it's not a morbid thought. This is probably going to happen to me. So I need to be prepared for it. And it's kind of a preparation. Health is a preparation thing. We're all going to face some sort of cataclysmic health event in our lifetimes. It's going to happen at some point in time. And it could be something that, I say cataclysmic, it's cataclysmic to you. You're going to get the flu really bad, and it's going to knock you on your butt, and you're not going to be able to move for a while, or you're going to blow out a knee. And how do you deal with that? How do you handle something that takes you down out of your ordinary and normal? And for me, especially after having had cancer, the chances of me getting it again are higher. So even higher than before. I may get it again, hopefully not until I'm, 80, but it might happen again. And if it does, am I still going to be strong enough? And are my organs going to be? Am I going to have enough nutrients to support a healthy recovery afterward, to get me through it and support it? Now that I've been through it, I know what it takes to get through some pretty horrible treatment. That strength is so important. And I've seen it firsthand also with my dad, who also worked out beforehand, and really focused on his health beforehand, and does so now. One of his first questions after he had surgery, when he was going through his cancer experience, was, am I going to be able to scuba dive again? That was one of the first questions coming out of surgery. And it was, and my husband and I weren't sure. He had just lost his bladder. So my husband and I weren't sure. We're like looking up online, can you scuba dive without this? And trying to figure all that out for him. And he has gone scuba diving since then. So it's great but that's it. He had to get back in the pool. He had to swim. He had to build those muscles back up. Same thing with me. I've got to stay at a certain place health-wise so that if it does happen again, I'm still, still got an 8-year-old. Am I still going to be there for my kids? And in the meantime, I like to play. I like to go out, and if they're going in the ocean, I want to be out there paddleboarding with them or doing whatever they're doing. I like to jump in the pool with them. I like to go on hikes with them. I like to be a physical person. And so that's another thing that health means for me, is that I'm not sitting on the sidelines in my own life. I don't want to be sitting in a chair watching everybody do things. I want to be doing that for a very, very long time.
So you're not just a member. You're also a coach at Move.
Yeah.
So you coach our group classes, you coach personal training, you coach our teen classes. You're also our client success manager. So you have your, hands in a lot of things at the gym.
Right.
What are some things that make you a good coach?
I think that the first one is I'm relatable. I think more than anything, one of my friends put it this way: if there's something that you've gone through, I've probably gone through it, or at least something similar. I can probably help you through that issue. So that relatability, I think, especially probably for most female members, is helpful. And that I'm still doing this, even though, yes, I still have to deal with having a job and raising kids, and right now homeschooling, or whatever you want to call it, that we're doing right now, and trying to get in workouts. All of those, I think the relatability helps. And I think the other piece of it is I'm just enthusiastic about people achieving things. It excites me to help people on that path. So if I'm trying to teach somebody how to do double unders and they get one double under, I think I'm more excited than they are. I'm over the moon for them. It's exciting. But at the same time, I'm pretty no nonsense about it too. And I think I don't know if that's refreshing or if that just pushes people in a different way, but whine to somebody else. I've got 4 kids already whining at me. I don't want to hear anybody else whine. Just tell me if there's a real reason why you can't do something. Let's talk about how to get you to where you can do it, and get you to where you want to be, versus talking about all the reasons why you can't be there. So I think that, yeah, I hope that those are the things. It's not going to be my amazing technical expertise, although I work on that and I try to get better all the time. But there's, I think the relatability piece is there's still things I can't do. I can't do a ring dip to save my life. But I know what I need to do to get there. I need to practice it. And so it's not that there's some magical formula to it. It's just I've been practicing on other things. And once I get those things down, then I'll get back to ring dips. But that's what I love about CrossFit, is that there's always going to be something that's going to challenge me that I'm going to have to work on. Because if there wasn't, I think I'd get bored pretty quickly.
Why did you want to start coaching?
I hadn't thought of it until Shayna approached me about it, and she asked me whether or not I'd be interested. And it wasn't even anything that even occurred to me before then, just because I thought it was outside of the realm of possibilities, that no one would want to listen to me as a coach. And so it's not something that I'd ever considered. But when she said it, I was like, you know what? I think that would be a lot of fun. And honestly, that's the way I approached it. Was I thought it would be a lot of fun to go through that process of guiding people through classes and sharing my experiences and helping. And I was right. I really enjoy it. When I'm in that classroom helping people, it is a lot of fun. It's a very rewarding experience, even in the chaos, especially teen classes can be very chaotic sometimes. And they are some of my favorite classes I've ever coached. Because their enthusiasm is just infectious as all get out. So it's definitely a good thing to get to be a part of.
Yeah, it takes a special kind of person, I think, to be a coach, and particularly a group coach. Every coach has a different personality. And if you try to act like another coach, you're probably not going to reach people in the same way as if you're just flat out yourself, you
Yeah,
know?
I'm definitely authentic. I can't, and I think part of that's just I'm 44 now. I can't be somebody that I'm not, and I don't even try anymore. This is who I am. But I try to bring the positive parts of that to the table when I coach. So hopefully that comes through.
Do you have any current goals?
One goal is to get stronger in general. So over the past year, I went through a lot of life changes, different jobs, went to school, did all of these things. And it got me away from, I was still working out throughout that, but I lost a lot of strength during that time. And for whatever reason, I like being strong and I want to get back to that. And so I've been focusing on that. But I also have this thing, I love trail running. And I did my first half marathon trail run not that long ago and just fell in love. And endurance trail running is something that I'd really like to do more of, if for no other reason than just to be out on the trails. And that's a very peaceful, wonderful place for me to be. And right now, right now my goal is to think about right now. And I know that that sounds silly, but with everything that's going on and being in lockdown and all of that, I want to make sure that I've kind of got a gift right now, and I don't want to waste it. That doesn't mean that I'm trying to do anything magical. I'm not learning new languages or anything like that. It's really about focusing on my kids. I've got this great gift of them being around all the time, and it almost gives me another opportunity, especially with I've got 3 teenagers in the house. So some days, if you get more than a hi mom on days where they have school and practice and all of that, it's a magical thing. So being able to get to know them on a different level that I wouldn't normally get to do, it's pretty awesome. And so that's kind of my goal right now, is to just enjoy the moment. I know that that sounds so trite, but it's very, very true. And everything else is just going to fall into place.
Yeah, I think people, at least if they're listening to this now, they can appreciate that, because we're all kind of in the same boat of
Yeah.
we're all in the middle of this crisis, and it can be hard to wrap our heads around. So being able to simplify things is probably a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you got anything else you'd like to add to the conversation, or tell anybody who's listening, or leave us off with?
So one thing I think is important, we talked about health a lot. I think that it is difficult for women often to get into something like CrossFit because of our preconceived notions of lifting weights. So I've had people start CrossFit and then quit and let me know that they did it because they didn't want to get bulky. For example, you hear that a lot. I don't want to get bulky. And there's a part of me that's just, and I tell them, I was like, do you know that women who are truly very muscular, how long and how hard they had to work? That's intentional. They have to really try. I've been trying to get biceps for years. And I'm just not willing to put in that level of effort. That's a lot of work. They're really working hard. You're not going to come into CrossFit for 3 months and end up with, Hulk arms. It's not going to happen. But it's hard to make that adjustment to people. And it's also hard when we're barraged with images of super skinny folks, and that's the idea of what we need to look at. And so now that I've got daughters who are teenagers, trying to get them to understand that importance of health and taking advantage of what your body can do. And I love seeing teen girls, for example, in the teen class for that reason, because I think that they're developing this knowledge about what their bodies can do versus what their bodies look like. And I think that's been one of the biggest mental changes for me since I started CrossFit was this focus on what my body is capable of versus and how fitness can help you achieve that versus fitness just being a conduit for getting skinnier. And I think that I've been able to kind of impart that on my daughters, especially my 14-year-old went out in the garage and was working out with weights the other day on her own. She won't listen to any of the programming I do. She's got to go do it on her own. But still, she was doing it, which is fantastic to be able to go out there and make it happen. And she said that she didn't want to, since we're not doing the teen classes right now, she doesn't want to lose her strength. And the fact that she talked about it in that way and not that, I don't want to get fat sitting around. That's not where her mind is. She's like, yeah, I don't want to get weak just sitting around all the time. Okay, let's do that. So I think that's something that I wish that I could share with more women and how important it is for their teenagers. I think that they get into something that enables them to really experience some sort of physicality that's beyond, just the simple abs of steel sorts of things in the video program, something that helps them recognize their own strength.
I appreciate you bringing that up because it's something that the gym was founded on with Shayna.
Yeah.
My perspective is not quite the same, being a male and living the life that I live. So I appreciate that you still have that perspective, and it's something that you can share as a coach and as a member of the community. So
that's it.
Well, thanks for coming on, and hopefully we'll get to actually see each other in person sometime soon.
I miss the gym. I miss everybody. I miss my people. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.